Everybody, this is just a quick video showing you who's going at each position in these rookie mock drafts. If you think you know who's going to go at this position, leave a comment down below. Who do you think it's going to be? And see if any of my guests who've been on agree with you. And before we get into it, hey, hit that like, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe. We're on a march towards, 500 subscribers. I'd love to be able to do it before we get into this season of football. That'd be awesome. So help me out and let's go. Let's see who's going at this draft pick, shall we?
So I'm going to just go right into 104 here. CJ Stroud. He was also decent age, good experience, was efficient and accurate passer, which I really, and actually he's much more efficient and accurate than Young. And there's like this rumor, there's this perceived rumor. You always hear people whisper about it. CJ Stroud might have some rushing ability. He had like his first touch or his first game ever as a starter. He won a rush for 48 yards for a touchdown. So there is that possibility that could develop. But that being said, CJ Stroud, what the real negatives for him are that he struggles with pressure. It's really clunky when things break down because he had an amazing offensive line here. And the competition, the Big Ten, while still very good, is not what it is in the SEC. So his competition, his O-line play, and also too, just his wide receiver talents were just far and away better than Bryce Young's. So that's kind of, and then also too, the real knock was, I really kind of was deflated when Houston traded up for the 103 and they gave up their 24 first. I just think to me, I'm perceiving some organizational incompetence and I think it's tough to measure what that means. So when you're trying to look from an analytical point of view, how do you measure that? So this is more of a gut thing that says I can hear the shower or something going on in the background here. Sorry if you picked that up, but I really can, just thinking here. So I really think that perceived ability to the organization. So, all right, I'm going to just roll it back really quick there. So I got a little off track there.
Okay.
The organization can really affect how a quarterback either thrives or struggles. And I think Trevor Lawrence, I know this is recency bias, but I think it was a perfect example of, hey, one of the best prospects we've seen from the QB position struggled as a rookie because of the organization around him. You put someone just who's competent as a coach, and he's starting, and then gives him decent weapons around him, and you're seeing him thrive. So I think that is what was really the tiebreaker here. But that is not me hating on CJ Stroud because I spent a lot on his negatives here, but his efficiency, his ability to throw the ball all levels of the field is excellent. Lots of love for CJ Stroud as well.
Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of torn on it too. And the last show we had just before the draft, I ended up just saying, like, you know what? I think I'll just take the guy that goes to the Panthers. Like, because the Texans, you're right, they've been a bit of a dumpster fire for a while, and I know they've kind of strengthened that offensive line, but the weapons that Stroud has, I mean, throwing to Robert Woods is not the same as throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, as good as Robert Woods has been, and like, whatever, it's not the same. So I think whoever went to the Texans is probably going to struggle a little bit more than whoever went to the Panthers. So yeah, I think you're right here taking Bryce Young above CJ Stroud.
And don't get me wrong, Bryce Young had some amazing talent around him as well. But if we're just comparing the two, I think Bryce Young did more with less. So, so that's just as a separator here. And then this conversation that you just brought up here, that as far as landing spot, you said, hey, I'm going to take whoever the Panthers take because of the Houston. Kind of remind me of another piece of advice to kind of sprinkle in here. Our overconfidence as analysts or fantasy managers, or however you want to frame it, is we think we know more than we actually do. So if you look at where our rankings were from in year N+2, so what our rank is going to be from now compared to what it's going to look like in 2 years, it is disgusting. Like you look back at your rankings, like, what was I thinking? That player sucks, or what have you. And so I think, like, hey, and that happens a lot with landing spot, and that's why I really try not to overweight landing spot too much. And it's really just a tiebreaker for me, is that it's really hard to measure landing spot. How do you objectively measure it without having my own bias and other things play into it? And things change so rapidly. Like, people are talking about Trevor Lawrence, and hey, they were talking about how the brilliance of I can't remember, Urban Meyer, when he was being drafted, like, oh, this coaching mind, he came to Jacksonville because of Trevor Lawrence, and it's going to be great for him. He knows how to use him. And look how that happened. And then look at how Tom Brady's situation changed from, he had one of the best O-lines, and then a year later, because of injuries, things are not going great anymore. So it's just how much things can change, or overconfidence. So, and when you're valuing your rookies, and things are changing because of landing spot and draft capital, just remember, we do not know as much as we think we know. So try to go back to things that are predictive, not descriptive, as far as predicting the future.
So who's coming in then at a pick 4? You staying with the quarterbacks here, or are you veering somewhere else?
Yeah, I think I'll have to stick with quarterback, although Jahmyr Gibbs has certainly shot up in terms of value from where I expected him to go. I expected him to still have JSN ahead of him. Might be a bit of a clue to who I'm picking next. But just Gibbs securing that value is unbelievable. So yeah, Bryce Young at 104. And if you're sitting at 104 and you're landing the 101 in the NFL draft, I mean, that's incredible. I think he's set up to have a pretty successful year one, to be honest. I think the Panthers are building the right way. They've got a fairly solid O-line. They've got an awesome defense. They're in a really poor division. I mean, the Falcons improved. Buccaneers and Saints, maybe not so much. I don't think they're going to be competing this year. So I think that the stage is there for Bryce Young to have a really good first year. I think we can see that he's the best. For me, he's the best quarterback coming out in this NFL draft.
Yeah.
And it's an incredibly safe prospect. Obviously, the size was the concern coming in. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be absolutely fine. And like CJ Stroud, I think he's going to live around quarterback 12 to quarterback 8 is probably his ceiling. And I think that's where you'll find him in the next 2 to 3 years, and just be happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like sometimes harder thing to realize, but we're not picking the best quarterback here. We're picking the best, fantasy quarterback, right? So Bryce Young doesn't really have, the wheels to compete with even CJ Stroud, never mind, Anthony Richardson. While he might be the best sort of passer of the three, you only get so many points for passing, and it's kind of rigged for these Konami code quarterbacks, which Bryce Young, sadly for him, just isn't. But he might outlast the other guys if you're looking for longevity. If you need, that solid quarterback 2 for your team for the next 10 years, I think Bryce Young might be your guy, right?
He's the perfect quarterback 2 to take, and just feel really good about that, because he can finish as a quarterback 1 any single year, and he might do it every single year because he might be that good. So if he's a quarterback 2, and you're probably drafting him as a quarterback 2, that feels really good in Dynasty.
Yeah, agreed. Is Bryce Young the guy that you're going to go with next at 1-4?
Yeah. In a super flex, it's easy. I've seen this is the part where I've seen different names. I've seen different players. I've seen Gibbs go at 4. I've seen, I've seen Bryce Young fall to 6, to be honest, and Gibbs and Jigba have gone before him. But to me, in a super flex draft, Bijan's that guy.
Yeah.
But to be fair, actually, one of the fantasy wildcard leagues, Anthony Richardson went at 1.
Really?
Because I believe he's in a massive rebuild, and Bijan's not somebody that's going to help him in a rebuild. I think it's a 14-man league as well. So
that changes it.
QBs are more valuable as well, But that brings us straight to the 104, which I could guess what your next pick is, because only smart guys pick these players. What's your 104 then, Mags?
My 104 is obviously, it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, Paul.
No.
Switching it up. It's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, because I kind of just talked myself into it in the last 5 seconds. I'm not going to lie. Bryce Young, right? What? Is he going to be a quarterback 1 ever? Is he ever going to finish in the top 12 quarterbacks fantasy-wise?
He can.
I don't know.
He can.
He can. But is he? Or Jahmyr Gibbs? Jahmyr Gibbs, if he stays healthy, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a top 12 running back this year if he stays healthy. Like, you don't draft a guy that high. Those guys don't feel like, historically, like, you take a running back that early, they're smash hits every single time. So I'm thinking, who's going to actually help my fantasy team here? Am I happy taking Bryce Young, who's going to be a quarterback to a guy that you have in your super flex spot, someone who is he going to be Mac Jones, right? Is that what Bryce Young is going to be? This guy is kind of there and you'll start him, but you're not like too pleased about the points that he's getting. Is he a better player than Mac Jones? Yeah, absolutely. Is he going to score more points? Maybe, right? But I know for sure that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to score a lot of points. So I kind of talked myself into it there, Paul. Am I a bit crazy for that?
No, I love it, to be fair, and I love the fact that you've mixed it up a bit. You've brought the heat. You've brought the heat to the certified inferno. And yes. I absolutely love it. I said Jahmyr Gibbs, however you want to say his name. He is somebody that I'm high on, and he is somebody that I'm trying to take early in the drafts. So I love the pick, but I'm going to bring you in at the 105 now, and I think I know which way you're going to go, but I'm going to try and spin it a little bit. So if you were sat at, say you were team 8, for example, would you now see the fact that a QB's dropped another pick? Would you be interested in moving up to maybe get Bryce Young? I know what you were saying about Bryce Young, but do you think that maybe there's a bit of value to move up and get that last starting QB, if that's what you need at team 8? Do you think that and if it is, what would you be looking to pay on top to move up to that spot?
Yeah, if you're like a team 8 and you do need that like third quarter, realistically, you want Bryce Young to be your third quarterback or fourth quarterback. You don't want him to be if you should quarterback 1 your team, you're in trouble. If you should quarterback 2, you might be in trouble as well. So
but somebody that's finished sort of 8th, 9th, they've not got a team that can win the division or win the league. They haven't, but they've got a fairly strong team. Now, they could have been sat there last year and maybe got Tom Brady in their team. Tom Brady. Yeah. Maybe like a Pat Mahomes, a couple of... Oh, have I lost you?
No, I'm still here, bro.
No, the screen went blank. So if they've got Tom Brady, they've got Pat Mahomes, and I don't know, say Trevor Lawrence, they've got them 3 and you're going, oh, they're great. But now that Tom Brady's retired, they could be going, oh right, I really want one of them QBs. I don't want to, now they've dropped to 5. You may be looking and going, oh yeah, I could jump up, and I'm just intrigued to find out what you'd like to put on top of something to move up 3 spots for a QB. Would you throw, I don't know, maybe a 24-second on top to move forward?
That was kind of my initial inkling, was it'll probably take like a second round pick to move up and get that done. And I don't hate that either. If you really are desperate for a quarterback here, I think that's a fine move to make. You don't want to get stuck without a quarterback at all. I was kind of shooting for the upside a little bit more with Gibbs, but I still think Bryce Young is a good, third quarterback to have in your team. And if you do need him, if you're at 4 and you really needed a quarterback, I'm not mad at you taking Bryce Young either, obviously. So yeah, I think throwing on a second on top of that, moving up 3 spots, no problem with that at all.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, these quarterbacks all in the same tier. So Superflex sticking with the quarterback. Bryce Young going to the Panthers, number 1 overall pick. I mean, first of all, what a great situation to be in, being the first overall quarterback selected in the NFL draft. Going to the Panthers, which I think is actually not too bad a situation. And people mentioned that the supporting cast he's going to have over there is not great, but he's got some real solid veterans there, and guys like Thielen, DJ Chark. I feel like the foundations that they've got there is pretty solid for him coming into the NFL. He's going to have some established wide receivers. While in fantasy they might not be the greatest, but having somebody like an Adam Thielen that can help you as a rookie quarterback coming into the league is going to be great for him. It looks like the Panthers are going to be willing to surround him with some more weapons as well. Obviously they selected Jonathan Mingo in the second round. So again, this is a team that I think is going to build around Bryce Young. Again, what he offers in fantasy is probably pretty similar to a CJ Stroud. I think in terms of the ceiling that they've got and the floor that they've got, I feel like they are pretty close. But again, I think there's going to be another great quarterback in the NFL. Going to have a lot of longevity, hopefully. There's obviously the concern with the size, but I feel like that's the only real argument people have against Bryce Young, to be honest, because what he's done in his college career has been great. And people always say because he's an Alabama quarterback, he might have had an easy ride. But to be honest, his receiving core the last couple of years has not been brilliant over at Alabama since obviously he lost Jameson Williams a couple of years ago. Last year didn't really have too much in terms of weapons. So I think he's a solid quarterback and he's going to be great again in the NFL and hopefully for fantasy.
Yeah, I think like Bryce Young could. I mean, I think it's not hard to say like Bryce Young might be the best like quarterback out of these three, but we're not picking the best quarterback here. We're not NFL general managers. We're picking the best fantasy quarterback. And a comparison that people always talk about, oh, Bryce Young is short. It's like, oh, well, so was Drew Brees. It's like Drew Brees had to break NFL records to become fantasy relevant. Like he had to literally pass more passing yards than anyone else ever had to become fantasy relevant because he wasn't great using his legs. He was just incredibly accurate. So that's kind of the ceiling that Bryce Young needs to hit. He needs to be like elite level, like game changing, like passer to become, fantasy relevant. Or, he could end up being, and there's obviously nothing wrong with it, like a Kirk Cousins kind of guy. And, are you happy getting, Bryce Young for the next, 10, 15 years as like a quarterback to a pick 1-4? Probably, right? Probably. That's still pretty good value. So, yeah, I think Bryce Young, we talked about ceiling and floor. I think, the floor is probably quite nice for Bryce Young, but the ceiling, it's one of those like low ceiling, like flats, right? You can touch the floor and the other feet are still on the ground at the same time, right? Lovely heating, very safe, very economical, but, not quite the same as Anthony Richardson, which is like do you ever click on the OMG tab on Airbnb? Do you ever do that? Absolutely fantastic. You get the tree houses and like all this kind of thing, right? It's much more exciting, right? But yeah, Bryce Young's a much safer investment. But we got him locked in at 1-4, sorry.